outer space. I got Milky Way for blood, evolution in my veins. I'm gone, I've been far away. I'm illuminated now, make a move, start a waves. I've been dreaming about flying for a long time. I had a vision from the birds, they want a coastline. Artificially intelligent way. I'm your future, past and present, I'm a fine line.
I killed 2 of them. Yes, they're mortal and they do die.
In 1994, Phil started giving lectures about government cover-ups, black projects, and UFOs. He's been saying somebody is chasing him, and he knew that they were out to get him. He did not realize what all was down there until he ran into these beings, and he had this incident at an underground military base in Dulce, New Mexico in 1979. Phil would say that back in 1954, under President Eisenhower's administration, allegedly, the federal government actually decided to form a treaty with the alien entities, which I don't know how that works, but nevertheless, Phil actually said that this treaty was named the Greada Treaty, which basically made the agreement that the aliens involved could take cows and test their implanting techniques on a few human beings as well. But they had to provide all the details that they collected back to the government. Now, according to Phil, they completely did whatever that they wanted to do, and this is what he said led to the Dulce attack in 1979 that gave him his injuries. The rumors about Dulce, New Mexico are really far out there. I mean, I was so down the rabbit holes. The rumors about this small town is that on the surface, there's not a lot to see, but underneath the surface, there are unimaginable experiments and technologies that are going on beneath. Now, when Phil was telling his story, he would go on to say that they had to drill like 4 distinct holes in the desert, and they were going to link these holes together and blow out large sections at a time. Phil would say that his job was to go down in the holes and to check the rock samples. Phil was actually known to be an explosive expert. He was able to look at the rock and tell how porous it was and what kind of explosive would be best, and so that's what he was hired to do. Phil said on this particular day, he was headed down there and that he found himself in like this large cavern that was full of outer space aliens, or otherwise known as these like large grays.
In this process, I was lowered down the basket of one of these holes, and about from me to this elderly woman here in the front was sitting a 7-foot tall alien gray. The stench was worse than the worst garbage can you can imagine. The person was or the entity was absolutely horrible. Our United States government lied, did not tell us anything about the alien threat.
He said afterwards, this is when he realized or learned that aliens were not only here on the earth, but that they have been here for millions of years. Phil also said that because he was shot with cobalt radiation, that is what he ended up getting cancer from later. Phil says that he ended up spending 2 years recuperating from his injuries, which, yeah, it looked terrible. Phil had several health issues. He had chronic lower back pain, and he also had multiple sclerosis. Because of this, Phil sometimes had to use crutches, a body brace, leg braces, and a catheter and a wheelchair. And he also had cancer in his arms, and he had many wounds, and he had a metal plate in his head, and he had missing fingers on the left hand. And the biggest scar is a scar that Phil had that ran from the top of his throat all the way down below his belly button, and he had another scar under his ribs. Now, critics say that none of this ever happened, and that, as a matter of fact, Phil had very serious mental issues. He was even diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he was even put into a mental institution from 1968 to 1969 to be treated for it. They say that under stress, Phil would actually himself, and they even said, y'all, that his 2 fingers and his thumbs by himself. Now, come on. According to Phil's now ex-wife, Cynthia, she believes that Phil started lecturing because of the death of his very good friend, Ron Rummel. The police actually ruled his death as a ending of it all by putting a firearm in his mouth. However, in the police report, it is noted that there is blowback on Ron's hand, but not on the actual firearm. Because of this, Phil got really suspicious because Phil and Ron had been working on a magazine project called Alien Digest together. The magazine had recently become super popular and was getting talked about a lot. Phil believed that that is why his friend Ron was ended by somebody else, but however ruled an ending of it all, if you guys know what I'm saying here. And Phil also believed that the reason why Ron was taken out was so he would not expose any more government cover-ups. So Cynthia said that Phil felt like it was time to spread the word more than ever and started giving lectures. In one of Phil's lectures from May of 1995, Phil claimed that his father was involved in the infamous Philadelphia experiment. Now, if you guys have never heard about this, whoa, okay. This Philadelphia experiment was allegedly an experiment where this humongous United States Navy ship is out in the ocean, and allegedly the military is trying to make it disappear, like go invisible, in order to better, fight in wars and stuff. So they're using this like electrical, like generators, magnetic field in order to make this ship become invisible. And it almost becomes invisible with this green smoke. Everybody's getting nauseous. The people that are performing this like experiment are like, whoa, this almost worked. Let's try it again. And when they do, and this magnetic field goes around this boat again, or this ship, when the ship comes back, some of the crew members are embedded in the metal structure of the ship. This is when allegedly like very, very, very serious side effects started taking over the crew. Some rematerialized inside out and others completely vanished forever. This drove them completely insane. The U.S. Navy completely denies this, and it's far out there to think about it. Phil says that when his father passed away in 1993, that this is when he discovered original letters in his basement that allegedly proved that the Philadelphia experiment actually happened. We could go real deep into Phil Schneider's father and the top secret projects that he worked on, like the Philadelphia Project, but we're going to keep on moving here. Allegedly, Phil's father worked on this experiment. They also allegedly proved that Oscar Schneider, Phil's father, had been a participant after the crew members had been quarantined in a Virginia psychiatric ward. Allegedly, Captain Schneider, Phil's father, actually autopsied the bodies of the crew members as they died and found alien implants in their arms, legs, behind their eyes, and deep inside their brains. Phil said that this was evidence that either by accident or on purpose, aliens were involved in the Philadelphia experiment and may have been responsible for its failure. 2 years into giving his lectures, something terrible happened to Phil. On January 17th of 1996, Phil was found dead in his apartment where he had apparently been dead there for several days to even a week. His body was found in a very unusual position. It was also said that that was found on his wheelchair. However, when you looked at Phil's body, there was no open wounds where that could have came from. And initially, when he was found, it was ruled that he had died from a stroke or a heart attack. But then when his body was taken to the funeral home, the mortician noticed that a catheter tube was wrapped around his neck 3 times and tied off, and his body was bloated. So it went from him having a stroke or a heart attack to him ending his own life by him wrapping his own catheter 3 times around his neck. Everybody that knew him, his wife, his best friend, I listened to his wife speak too, they all said he would not have done this. But the best friend said that because of him missing those 3 fingers and there's no way he could have wrapped it around and tied it the way that it was tied anyways. Now, from when this first happened, Phil's ex-wife, Cynthia, said that the circumstances surrounding Phil's death was very suspicious. Now, even though the two of them had a divorce, they were still very close and they were like best friends. So when Cynthia had found out that he passed away and she called down to the funeral home to find out information, first of all, they would not let her see his body at all. No matter what she did, they never let her see his body, which she thought was suspicious, but okay, what are you going to do? When she was going over the autopsy report, she saw that the way that they talked about Phil's genitals was completely wrong because he had had an injury there too. I'm not going to get into too many details, but the autopsy report stated that it was completely intact. And when she saw that, she knew that either whoever did this autopsy on him was either completely incompetent or they didn't really do it and they were just kind of going through the motions. And she also said that in the state of Oregon, when a person passes away in a home, an investigation immediately has to happen. But because they ruled it an ending of it all, they didn't do like a full investigation at first. So she started to dig. When she went to his house, all of his lecture materials, all of his alien materials, the notes that he had for his alien book agenda, all of it was missing. Whoever came to his house didn't come there to rob it for money. They came there and took all of his documents. She also said that her husband, Philip, was an expert in chemicals and his own medical needs, and that he had multiple pills at hand that he could have just quickly ended his life with, quickly and painlessly if he wanted to. And he also had a firearm that he had borrowed to protect himself because he had had all these people following him and running him off the road. So why in the world would he strangle himself in such an unusual manner? He fought to live. Everything that he had been through, he wanted to live. Cynthia is actually still fighting to have Phil's death certificate changed to reflect that he was murdered, and that she hopes that things that were stolen from Phil's apartment can be returned one day to his daughter Marie. Lastly, she also said that she hopes that the world will come to know the truth about aliens, UFOs, the government cover-ups, black budgets, and how they're affecting everyday people. I think that Phil's story is very interesting. I definitely believe that he saw some things, and I believe that he believed everything that he said. I also believe that there are secrets going on in that part of the world, in Dulce, New Mexico. And I do believe that there's a base there. And one of the things that really makes me believe that there's something going on there is the locals. The locals that live there, there's so many interviews from the people that live there that have been there for their whole entire lives, that have seen things. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it is secret government base where they're doing all kinds of experiments underground. I don't know what's going on there, but I definitely believe something is going on down there. And I believe it's dark, and I believe it's probably not good. There are so many people's stories like this. Is everybody lying? Does everybody have issues? I don't know. He was diagnosed allegedly with schizophrenia, but also at the same time, a lot of people that come out and say these things get labeled as certain mental illnesses.
I don't need gravity, I need room. Oh, when I move, it's an earthquake rumble. I will never ever fall, never stumble. Be humble, break down.